Swinging a ground ball, stabbed by Folk. He has it. He underhands to first, and the Boston Red Sox are the world champions. For the first time in 86 years, the Red Sox have won baseball's world championship. Can you believe it?
Good afternoon and welcome back to the Fenway Files. My name is Tyler and we are going to be talking about something I posted on Twitter, X, call it whatever you want, a couple of weeks ago, actually more than almost a month and a half ago, talking about Roman Anthony. So if you are a Red Sox fan, you know that our entire future relies on that man's shoulders. There was a post that was talking about comments that Alex Cora made at Fenway Fest this past January. Now, Alex Cora is the manager of the Boston Red Sox. He is a fan favorite. I have been a fan of his managerial style since he was with the Astros, and he won us rings, takes losses personally, takes winning seriously in Boston. It's the reason why I was thinking he was not going to resign or ask for an extension because the Red Sox simply have not been dedicated to winning over the past 4 seasons ever since our 2018 World Series championship. Now, that's not counting 2021, but let's face it, 2021 was a gift from God. It was not destined or supposed to happen. So, anyway, what were the comments that were made by Alex Cora? When comparing Roman Anthony, I will get to him in a few minutes, with other players, Alex Cora said that he reminds him of J.D. Drew with more energy. That concerned the hell out of me, and I reposted what was originally posted on X. And I said, and I misspoke when I tweeted it, I said if our HC... it meant head coach, I meant Alex Cora. If he sees J.D. Drew and Roman Anthony, our future is cooked. Our foundational pillar moving forward cannot be a player like J.D. Drew. I got 135,000 views on that retweet, and I got absolutely bashed in the comments. Why? Because everybody was saying if Roman Anthony becomes J.D. Drew, the Red Sox will be okay. I completely disagree. Roman Anthony is essentially supposed to be the savior for this franchise. He is one of our big 3 remaining prospects, the others being Christian Campbell and Marcelo Meyer, right? Roman Anthony plays the outfield. It's kind of up for debate where he plays in spring training. He's been playing a lot of left field. I've also seen him in right field. He took a couple of... I've seen a couple of clips of him playing center field. His defense is a little sketchy. I'm not super thrilled with his defense, but the reason why he, outside of Roki Sasaki, who I'm not even going to talk about on this podcast, part of the reason why he, for a long period of time, was the number 1 prospect in baseball is because of his offensive ability. Scouts were calling him a 5-tool player with offensive stats that should be off the charts. Now, when you look at J.D. Drew, and I'm going to specifically look at his 2007 season with the Red Sox, and I'll get into in a second, his stats do not jump off the table. They don't even jump off the stat sheet. If you scroll really quickly, you will simply get lost in all of the other really bad numbers. So the reason why I'm going to focus on 2007 is because that is the year that J.D. Drew was on the Red Sox and we won a World Series. Now, winning is important in baseball, but winning regular season games and winning a World Series are 2 entirely different things. In my personal opinion, now, I was 7 during the 2007 championship victory for the Red Sox. I was not, obviously, the conscious viewer that I am now. Looking back at his stats of J.D. Drew's, J.D. Drew was not a reason why we won the World Series in 2007. Now, that is a hot take, and I understand that, and I will probably get hate for it, but I don't care. JD Drew was simply on the 2007 Red Sox. He was not a part of the reason why we won that World Series. Now, I will get to the one good thing he did the entire year in just a minute, but I'm going to read some statistics to you, and they are simply not good. JD Drew in 2007 had a 2.1 wins above replacement in 140 games. Now, JD Drew was also injury prone for most of, if not all of his career. From the time he was a rookie to the time he retired in 2011, he missed 3 full seasons worth of games due to injury. Simply put, he was an injury prone outfielder. What were the rest of his numbers in 2007? He had 126 hits in 140 games, so that averages about 0.7 to 0.8 hits per game, which, fine. For a person who was known for his offensive power, he only hit 11 home runs in 2007. That's not good. 64 RBIs. It's really easy to have 64 RBIs when Dustin Pedroia, Manny Ramirez, and David Ortiz, or not Manny Ramirez, I'm sorry. Dustin Pedroia, Jacoby Ellsbury, and David Ortiz are on base all the effing time. Alright? It's not hard to get 64 RBIs when arguably some of the best players in baseball are always on base ahead of you. 4 stolen bases, he was not a stolen base machine, that does not matter. The only good thing he did in 2007 was hit for 270. Now, in 2007, during what I would consider a very big offensive season league-wide, hitting 270 wasn't really that great. Now, if you look at 2025, when everybody is striking out 3 times a game, hitting 270 is pretty good. But for 2007, hitting 270 was not good at all. He was his on-base percentage was .373. You can make the argument that is very good. I will give you that. He was on base a lot. He did walk a lot. He also struck out a lot. His slugging percentage was below .500. That is not good for somebody who is supposed to be known for their offense. His on-base, or his OPS plus, essentially what his average was compared to the average of every other major league player in the sport, was a 105. Now, league average is 100, meaning that he was 0.05% better than every other player in the sport. He was 0.05% better than average. So what does that mean? He was essentially an average offensive player. Now, I'm going to compare his 2.1 ERA 2007 season to a player on the 2024 Red Sox who had a better WAR, wins above replacement season than JD Drew, and that is David Hamilton, who had a wins above replacement of 2.5. 0.4 wins above replacement better than JD Drew. Now, all of JD Drew's overall stats are better than David Hamilton's. However, David Hamilton played in 113 games instead of 140, and he had a better WAR in 113 games than JD Drew had in 140. Why did David Hamilton only play in 113 games? Because we didn't need him to play in more than 113 games. There was an issue with injuries that the Red Sox had this past season. For most of the season, he was our bench player. We used him for stolen bases. He created an insane amount of speed on the base paths. I remember this past season, there was a game where the Red Sox broke the Major League record for most stolen bases in one game as a team. And I think it was like 9. Some outrageous number, and David Hamilton had 5 of them. So, I would make the argument that David Hamilton's 2024 season was more impactful to the Red Sox than JD Drew's 2007 season during the regular season. Now, during the postseason, JD Drew struggled during the ALDS. It was during the ALCS that he finally decided to show up. And in Game 6 of the 2007 ALCS, in the first inning, he hit a grand slam, and that projected the Red Sox forward with the momentum necessary to beat the Indians in to finish off Game 6 and go on to win Game 7. Now, I make the argument that if something happens in the first inning of a ball game, you have 8 more innings to change the way the game is played. So if JD Drew hits that grand slam in Game 6, in the 9th inning, we are having an entirely different conversation. You cannot sit here and tell me that the reason why the Red Sox won Game 6 was because of JD Drew's grand slam in the first inning. There are still 8 more innings of baseball to play. Major League Baseball does not play 1-inning games. All right? Something that happens in the first inning does create momentum for the rest of the game, but it does not factor into the final result because you still have 8 more innings to play. So the reason why I originally made the statement that if the Red Sox see JD Drew in Roman Anthony, we are done for. Because we need more than a 2.1 WAR season from Roman Anthony. Now, don't get me wrong, JD Drew had a lot of good years with the Cardinals, but I'm not looking at his time with the Cardinals. I'm looking at his time with the Red Sox because Alex Cora and JD Drew were teammates from 2007 to 2008. So Alex Cora is comparing him to JD Drew because of their time played together. We need Roman Anthony to be way better than a 2.1 WAR player. We need at least 7 to 8. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm being a little bit greedy, but we need Roman Anthony to be a stud. If you look back at all of the top prospects from the past 10 seasons, Bryce Harper, Mike Trout, you even have others that like Paul Skeens. You have this past year Jackson Holiday. Now, he has yet to pan out, but that is still a big-time name. Shohei Ohtani was at one point in time the number 1 prospect in baseball. Now, our entire future is relying on Roman Anthony because the Red Sox have put all of their eggs in our farm system's basket. Now, we have finally started to invest in our team going into the 2025 season, but for the past 3.5, or honestly, the past 2 years, this past year more than previous years, you consistently hear in the media, just wait for the big 3. It was the big 4 at one point in time until we dished Kyle Teal to the White Sox for Garrett Crochet and Chase Meredith and others. But that's besides the point. For the past, I want to say 18 to 20 months, you keep hearing, wait for them to get the call up. Wait for the big 3. Now, the big 3 continue to get called up at the same time. Marcelo Meyer, Roman Anthony, Christian Campbell, Kyle Teal all got called up to AAA all together this past season. Many people in the Boston media are making the argument that Roman Anthony should be on the opening day roster for the Boston Red Sox going into 2025. I disagree. I do not think that we should be immediately jolting him into his first full season as a Red Sox immediately out of spring training. Let him get his feet wet a little bit more in AAA. He has not had a full season in AAA yet. I'm saying the exact same thing for Christian Campbell, who has struggled through spring training up to this point. Same exact thing for Marcelo Meyer. Leave those 3 in AAA. Let them see more at-bats. Let them see as much big league pitching as possible. Let them work on their mechanics and let them mature a little bit more because they have not played a full season in AAA yet. Meyer hasn't even saw a pitch in AAA because when he got called up, he was hurt. So what we need from Roman Anthony is way more than what JD Drew ever produced for the Red Sox, especially in their championship season. Now, JD Drew is a 45 WAR career player with 242 career home runs. Don't get me wrong, 242 career home runs is fantastic. A lot of that came during the early 2000s when the ball was flying out of most ballparks. I mean, you're looking at essentially the steroid era in the early 2000s. Major League pitching in the early 2000s was not what it was like in 2025. He was a career 278 hitter. That was his average. That is good when you're looking at the modern sense of what average is. If you look back at the top 65 players in Major League Baseball in 2007, almost all of them had a better overall average than he did. So, as I mentioned, J.D. Drew had a 2.1 WAR season in 2007, okay? We're going to look at a player that had a similar WAR in this past baseball season. Now, 2.1, I'm looking at anything around 2.1. There are some really interesting names that come up, okay? J.J. Bleday, Gavin Lux, Mike Yastrzemski, okay? Wade Lamont Jr., Ryan Jeffers. These are people who are competent Major League players, but are not all-stars. They are not even the best players on their AAA team, okay? When you look at RBIs, which is a pretty important factor, okay, J.D. Drew in 2007 had, where are we? Like I said, 64 RBIs. When you look at people who had 64 RBIs or lower in 2024, there are 98 players in Major League Baseball that had 93 players in Major League Baseball that had more than 64 RBIs. Meaning that if you put J.D. Drew on the 2024 Boston Red Sox, he isn't even in the conversation for being a top 100 player in the league. Okay? Some of these names. Andrew Benintendi for the Chicago White Sox, the worst team statistically in Major League Baseball history. Andres Jimenez, one of the best defensive second basemen in the sport. Not known for his offensive ability, still had just as much RBIs as J.D. Drew did in 2007. Gleyber Torres, not known for his consistent bat, had just as many RBIs as J.D. Drew. Now, some names that had more RBIs than J.D. Drew. Andrew Vaughn of the aforementioned Chicago White Sox had 70. Jeremy Pena of the Houston Astros had 70. Nolan Arenado, during his worst offensive season of his career, had 71. Simply put, J.D. Drew was not a good ball player in 2007. Now, you can sit here and you can have the argument with me that he had a huge part to play in the ALCS, and I would agree with you in Game 6. I would not agree with you in Games 1 through 5 or Game 7, or in the World Series. I pulled up a blog that was posted in 2013 talking about J.D. Drew. It starts off like this. To the majority, J.D. Drew was a sensitive, selfish, injury-prone bust whose sole motivation was financial. He disliked baseball, he lacked passion, and he was soft. That is not what I want out of our foundational pillar in Roman Anthony. What I want to see out of Roman Anthony is consistently on base, hitting for average, hitting for power, and playing good defense. And more importantly, playing for the win, not playing for the money. Don't get me wrong, money's important in Major League Baseball. But so is team effort and team winning. We're in a situation already with Rafael Devers caring more about his personal beliefs in playing third base than winning as a team. What I want to see out of Roman Anthony and the other prospects that are coming up, Christian Campbell and Marcelo Meyer, I want to hear them, I want to see them care more about winning as a team than their own personal stat line, than their own personal success. Roman Anthony, if the Red Sox have any sort of bright future, Roman Anthony needs to become a top 25 player in the sport. When you look at all of the past World Series championship winners, outside of the Dodgers this year because they simply bought their way to victory, every single World Series champion for the past 10 years has had a player ranked in the top 25. The Astros had like 4 of them a couple of seasons ago. The Texas Rangers had Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, their pitching staff, Jacob deGrom, Nathan Eovaldi. I could go down the list. Okay? When the Red Sox won in 2018, we had some of the best players in baseball. Rafael Devers, Mookie Betts, Xander Bogaerts, JD Martinez. The list goes on, and I haven't even started talking about our pitching yet. In 2007, JD Drew wasn't even the best outfielder on the team. Okay? So you cannot sit here and tell me that Roman Anthony needs to be like JD Drew. I will sit here and tell you that Roman Anthony needs to be 10 times the baseball player that JD Drew ever was on the Red Sox. Now, if Roman Anthony lives up to the potential of JD Drew coming out of college, then I will be ecstatic. JD Drew was one of the best college players in the history of collegiate baseball. But he never lived up to that potential in Major League Baseball. Roman Anthony needs to live up to not only his hype, his potential, but also being a former number 1 overall prospect in the sport. Now, I would make the argument that I still consider him the number 1 overall prospect in the sport because Roki Sasaki should not count, okay? But you cannot sit here and tell me with a straight face that if Roman Anthony plays his career out like JD Drew, the Red Sox will be fine, because I don't believe so. Roman Anthony needs to be a big reason why this team succeeds, or else this team will not succeed. And I want to make sure I'm very clear on that. If the Red Sox are going to win a World Series, Roman Anthony needs to be in the center of it, like Mookie Betts was in 2018, like Devers was in 2018, like our pitching staff was in 2013. Okay? He needs to be the player that he is supposed to be for the Red Sox. Everybody is saying that he's supposed to be the savior, and if he is a bust, the Red Sox are not going to have a good future, simply put. Now, I know that's a lot. I'm not trying to make it sound like I don't like JD Drew as a ball player. He was a fine ball player. That's my point, though. Roman Anthony needs to be more than just a fine baseball player. He needs to be a great baseball player. He needs to be an all-star baseball player. He needs to be, like I said, top 25 in the sport. At his position, he needs to be in the conversation for one of the top 10 in the sport, meaning that he is in the upper echelon of baseball players in the sport. Because if he's not, the Red Sox future, simply put, is doomed. So those are my thoughts on Roman Anthony and my tweet thoughts on Alex Cora comparing him to JD Drew. I thank you for listening to this so far. A couple of important updates. I do now have a TikTok, so it is at the Fenway Files. On X, I am at the Fenway Files 1. You can find me on YouTube and also on Spotify. Just simply look up the Fenway Files. So I appreciate you taking your time to listen to this. I apologize if I was rambling, but I do get passionate about the Red Sox, and that's what makes doing this so much fun and so beneficial for me as a fan and for somebody who looks forward to doing this for the remainder of the season. So I would appreciate it if you liked, subscribed, commented on the YouTube post or the YouTube upload. I mean, if you disagree with me, please tell me why, because I would love to hear the arguments for why Roman Anthony needs to be like JD Drew, because I will always stand by the argument that Roman Anthony needs to be a better baseball player than JD Drew ever was in order for the Red Sox to have any sort of successful future. So that's all my thoughts, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Sox.